Welcome folks, and happy Halloween, and welcome to our Halloween special video where we're going to talk about the top 5 best deaths in Bleach. Now this one's going to be interesting because I'm going to be looking at these deaths from a very general perspective. We're going to be looking at the deaths of characters and seeing how good they are from a choreography perspective, a narrative perspective, and any other thing that might go into it being the best death. So first, we're going to start with honorable mentions and then just move right along. So let's go. Honorable mentions, number 1, we have Ichigo defeating Yuha. This one's in honorable mentions because I felt such catharsis personally, and I know a lot of other people didn't really like this ending. I think Yuha getting his powers back right before Ichigo slays him and Yuha being caught off guard is a great way to finish one of the most arrogant and, forgive my language, asshole characters in the series. And my second best honorable mention is the reason I think he's such an a-hole and just felt so good for me was Yamamoto's death. Yamamoto's death thematically is so good. It's done so well by Kubo. He just gets trashed right before his death, and it hurts because I actually like Yama. He grew on me as the series went, and the disrespect that is shown to him just hurts. So that's why the other honorable mention death is just so good for me. Moving on to our top 5, we'll be starting with number 5, Findor Bifurcated death, and this is from the Shuhei Findor fight in FKT. This one has mostly to do with choreography, and as this list goes, you'll see my preferences. So, the choreography of this fight is superb in both the anime and the manga. The most interesting thing about this is that whether you look at the anime or manga version of this death, I think it's fantastic, and they're actually very different. So, in the manga, when Shuhei has Findor backed into a corner, Findor flees. He gets so scared after Shuhei gives one of the coolest speeches in the series about fear that was taught to him by Tozen. Findor flees in fear, and Shuhei just brutally cuts him down in such amazing fashion. I think this is why Shuhei became so popular with everyone. Now, if we look at the anime version is very different, but it's just as compelling because it's really cool. So instead of running in his moment of desperation, Findor just throws a Hail Mary. He charges up a Acero right in Shuhei's face and fires at point blank range, and Shuhei just throws Kazeshini, powered up with a whole bunch of spirit energy, right through the Acero as it demolishes everything behind him and just cuts Findor down. It's so graphic that they silhouette the ending. It's so beautiful. I love it. Moving on to number 4, best death in Bleach. I have Avirama Redder versus Izuru Kira. Another fight from FKT in the fight that takes place before the Shuhei one. This one is just a little bit higher because I think the death is far more brutal. And the best thing about this one is I think it could have gotten even more brutal. So I'll explain that at the end. Looking at this fight, it's kind of broken up in both the anime and the manga. Either way, it's still a good fight and it's choreographed well. And honestly, with how brutal this end is, I might just make another top 5 video of most brutal deaths in Bleach. But staying on this one for now, let me know if you want to see that in the comments below. So in this fight, Izuru gets the upper hand on Avirama. He's able to blind him momentarily and cut his wings with Wabisuke. Wabisuke's Zanpakuto ability is to double the weight of anything it cuts, and it can do this exponentially with many more cuts that get added on. So he cuts Avirama's wings, which are, as Avirama himself stated, basically steel feathers, so they're already heavy. So now Avirama weighs a ton and he can't fly. So we finally learn why Wabisuke's shape is the way it is. It's basically a guillotine. He puts his foot on the back of Avirama's head, pushes down, and lifts his sword, cutting off his head. Now, the way this could have been more brutal is if Izuru slowly kind of very lightly cut Avirama's head and let the weight of his own head slide and cut himself and decapitate himself. But I think that probably been too brutal and unnecessary. This isn't Berserk. But this is a fantastic death. Number 5 and number 4 are here because of how well they're choreographed and the brutality of them. On to number 3. Number 3 is going to surprise some people, and I think it's Ulquiorra Schiffer. This one is so well done, not for just the choreography, but the narrative element too of Ulquiorra. So we've been building to this whole thing of Ulquiorra learning what emotions are, understanding what a heart is, quote unquote, and he finally finds in his last moments as he fades to dust. It's a fantastic moment. But it's not the main reason it's here. For me, it's mainly here because of how well it was executed. Ulquiorra was dogging Ichigo. And in Ichigo's last desperate moment, he becomes fully hollified and dog walks Ulquiorra. And probably the most beautiful rendition of this is the Hell chapter opening. It's so beautiful. The way he gets dogged, I could cry. But after he gets dogged, and Ichigo steps on his head and then blows him away with a Sero, very similar to what Ulquiorra was doing to him. It's just the whole brutality of everything. And this fight culminates in three people's arcs: Ulquiorra's, Ichigo's, and Orihime's. Ulquiorra's death satisfies 3 narrative plotlines, and that is honestly very impressive for Kubo to do. So that's why it gets here at number 3. Number 2, we have Gin Ichimaru's death. Now this one hurts so much because Gin is one of my favorite characters, and sadly, the death just wasn't deserved. I know it was deserved, but it wasn't deserved. Gin's death is Kubo's ability to write romance taken to its highest point. Kubo doesn't like writing about romance, as he said before, but for me, I think he's really good at it, and he's really good at making the audience long for romance in a series that is essentially just about fighting. We want to see Rangiku and Gin happy, but we know after we find out why Gin has been doing what he's been doing, being a double agent, that was just never going to be a thing, and that's sad. And I think that's what's so good about this and what puts it over the Ulquiorra death, in the sense that it didn't have as many plot lines tied into it as Ulquiorra's was, but the execution of it was much, much better because Gin was always a suspicious character. Gin was always suspected of being evil, yet we always had this little footnote of Rangiku not understanding why he would do this. And from what we understood and never really paid attention to was Rangiku knew Gin. So why don't we believe her side of what she sees? She doesn't understand why he does it. So we all should have been suspicious about that. And when it's revealed why he did it, and then later in the novelizations revealed even further what he was trying to do, it makes the death, even retroactively, way better. And that's why I have it over Ulquiorra. And the number 1 death in Bleach, and it's my favorite fight in the series. It's one of my favorite narrative moments in the entire manga. Kenpachi killing Kenpachi and taking the title. Retsu Unohana's death for me was so emotional. My first read through of this, I breezed past it because I just didn't want to deal with losing such an amazing character in Unohana, and basically how she retroactively changed the series just from her explaining something in a single panel. She retroactively made the Kenpachi storyline 10 times better. And the reveal of who she is and what she was and who she can become made me want her character more. Her death was so satisfying because of the sexual undertones of the fights, because of how well it was choreographed, because who was involved. I'll go deeper into why this is my favorite fight and why I think this is the best death in the series when I make my Kenpachi versus Kenpachi analysis video, but that may be far off. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Have a great Halloween. Love you guys. Remember, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Tell me what you guys thought of the video. Have a good night. Bye. And don't eat a lot of candy.